and unmuted. Hello! Welcome to TRPG, the talk show, where this whole channel started. We are so excited for today's episode. And before we get started on that, let's hear about what you have going on, Darby.
Well, the things I have going on are you can find me on every other Wednesday on Neon Lights Roleplay. That was super not stuttered, and I'm not reading off of sticky note right now. You can find me every other Wednesday on Neon Lights Roleplay, playing in the game called Stardust Ghosts, which has gone from a Mech 10 Zero game to a No Amount of Armor game, which is written by the lovely Vermin, who you can find also on that channel. It's super sick. It's a mech game. My character is definitely not a jerk and an asshole and a murderer. No, definitely not. She's super chill, very
You're
relaxed.
always lying about your characters.
What do you mean? I don't know what you're talking about. And besides that, next weekend I will be in Minnesota at MagicCon. So if you're also gonna be at MagicCon or stuff, hit me up. I don't know if I have a badge yet, so we'll find out. I might just be hanging out in Minnesota. So
cool. What are you drinking today?
Water. I brought my water bottle. It's got my stickers on it.
I'm so proud of you for drinking water.
It's so good. It's good for you, apparently.
Mm.
Gastritis girlies gotta drink water. Yeah.
So I am drinking a spicy peach cobbler from Friday Afternoon Tea. It's a Rubius tea with like peaches and cinnamon and a bunch of other stuff in it. I don't have the bag right here, so I couldn't tell you what else is in there, but it's very tasty. I don't have a ton going on for streaming wise, but on Tuesday nights we have our Fistful of Value root game that Miguel is currently GMing with a great group of cute little critters. And then starting next Sunday, we will have Romulos, or Apocalypse Keys game that Alyssa is GMing. And then coming soon, we have a game that Scholastic Dragon will be jamming that myself and eventually Hamna will also be in. And that cast is so hot. I'm so excited. It's going to be
so jelly.
Gay and so sad. I cannot wait. It's going to be great. So definitely check that out. We will be playing D&D, which we don't often do on the channel. So if you want to see a super cool D&D game, absolutely tune in for that. It's going to be messy. It's great. And we're also gearing up for a Fae Fair. So if you have any interest in being a part of Fae Fair, whether it's donating prizes for giveaways or participating as a tech runner or being in a panel or a game, we would be happy to have you join us. I will be posting a call for help with that here pretty soon on our Twitter. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, so that's all the plugs that I have for today. Let's go ahead and bring on our first guest.
Alrighty. Introducing Hamna Shahid. Any all pronouns. They are a TTRPG actual play performer, producer. They've specialized in high emotion, character-driven narratives. His work explores themes of tender, vicious, and the complexity of morals and what or who it is that makes life worth living. Hamna is the executive producer of Gudia, a cast member on a variety of APs, including Transplaners, RPGs, The Second Stranger, Itaewon by Night, and Mythic Initiative, and more. So, welcome in.
Hello.
I
feel like I should run in like wrestling WWE style with like music coming in the background.
Alrighty. The first question we always ask every guest is, what's in your cup? What be you drinking this fine day?
So I don't normally drink out of a cup, but I brought this today. It's a little Halloween. It's got a little ghost on it. The ghost has a top hat. It's
my God.
Cute, actually.
A distinguished gentle person.
It has Coke in it. I literally just emptied my can of Coke into it. the flavor of the show, you know? So
Hey.
presentation matters.
That's wonderful.
I first I forgot that Coca-Cola as the abbreviation code.
Oh yes, sorry, not cocaine. It's Coca-Cola. I promise.
Like, what?
Please don't report this stream.
That's my bad. I have bad brain ears. Like, I was like, wait, yes, there's a drink. There's a drink called Coke. Yep. Which is, anyways.
Yeah, there is.
You have this incredible project going on currently, the mutual aid raffle. If I was wondering if you could tell us about what inspired this project and how it got started, because it's tomorrow is or today's the final day to enter, correct? And then tomorrow you do the drawing.
Yes. There are about 7 hours left to enter the raffle. So if you're interested, you should go check out my Twitter page to go see what's up with that. That's Lilith TTRPG. But yeah, for those that don't know, I'm currently running a TTRPG mutual aid raffle where we are raffling off a whole host of different tabletop related prizes, thanks to some very, very generous and lovely folks in the industry right now. And all of that money is being raised to directly go to 3 very wonderful queer and trans folks who are currently in need of help with bills and food and whatnot. In terms of what inspired it, honestly, it's just these are 3 people that I like know and love in my life. Something that people may not know about me is that I am a labor justice organizer in my sort of like real life meat space. And so I've been organizing for quite a few years around like decent work and fair wages and things like that. And so it just kind of like seeing the ways in which people are kind of like struggling. I feel like we have this moral imperative to help each other out when we can. And I thought it would be a really fun way to sort of engage in mutual aid as praxis, as sort of a way to practice showing up for our community and being there for people, but also in a way that I think like is fun for everyone else to like be involved in, rather than just sort of like a simple fundraiser. I really like the idea of being able to like, you know, like thank people for helping out and sort of giving people a way to a little something to incentivize them with it. And I've been very, very lucky that so many wonderful people have like offered different services or different like products and things like that that normally would cost a lot of money to get from them for very sort of very accessible, ideally, ticket prices. So that's kind of like where all of that started, generally speaking.
Awesome. Yeah, I also threw my hat in that raffle. So I threw the link to Hamna's Twitter post about it in the chat. So if you're interested, you should check it out because there's some amazing prizes in there. But on top of other things that you do, for those who don't know, Gudia is this incredible game of Bluebeard's Bride that was run on Nameless Domain. And not only did you play in this game, you also produced it. So what can you tell us about the process of creating it? And are there any particular details in the creation of it that you're really proud of that you want to tell us about?
Yeah, Guria is like my baby. It's my like project that I'm like everyone go look at it. It took, I think, from idea, like from when it was kind of like greenlit to happen as a project to actual completion. I think it was a total of like 4 months or something like that total. I'd been ideating on it for a lot longer than that, but in terms of when I started working on it to the final product, I was about 4 months of work, and it was a lot of it was a lot of very intentional planning for me in terms of who I would bring on board and like what we were trying to do with the project in and of itself. It is a one shot, and I think that we put a lot of sort of like work into it compared to what like normally I think kind of goes into a one shot. And that was all very intentional because I wanted to sort of play around with like 2 things. one of my goals with Guria as a show was I really wanted to create a space in which like queer people of color were able to tell a story that we don't normally necessarily feel comfortable telling at all tables. You know, there are some things that we might theoretically want to explore in a narrative, but don't always feel comfortable doing. And so I wanted to create a space in which that felt okay for us to lean into. And then the second thing that I wanted to do with the show was I really wanted to experiment with the visual medium of tabletop actual plays because right now, by and large, the actual visuals of an actual play are kind of not necessarily unimportant, but they don't necessarily add to the narrative. The same way that like while you're watching an AP, you could quite easily kind of put it on a second monitor and like just listen to it, and you would get functionally the same experience, right? And that's not a bad thing, but that's kind of what we have right now as our zeitgeist for how we do APs. And I kind of compared it to movies where, you know, if you just listen to a movie but you don't watch it, you're kind of missing something from the experience, right? Watching the movie adds to the narrative. There's symbolism, there's themes, there's motifs that you miss. And I really wanted to sort of play with that and think like, okay, like, is there a way that we can use that principle but then use it in actual plays? Like, can we use the actual visual medium of the storytelling and make that like part of the narrative, part of the storytelling? And so that was sort of like one other main thing that I was trying to do with the show. So for those that watched it, you can kind of tell the way in which it was like edited, both in terms of like the video editing, but also the way that the overlay was set up. That in and of itself was like, it was constantly changing based off of how the narrative was progressing and things like that. And that I think those two goals are really the things that I'm like really proud of. Is I do think that we did both of those things, right? Based off of the experience that I know that the cast had at the table, I know that people felt comfortable sort of like going places that they didn't otherwise necessarily ever get to go. And I'm very thankful for everyone for like trusting each other at the table and being willing to do that together, because I know that that's a very vulnerable thing. And I'm very thankful that we sort of were able to do that together. And then secondly, I am really proud of us as a team. Josephine Kim, who was my co-producer, and then Stella Luna, who was the graphic designer. All of us kind of worked together to create what the visuals would look like for the show. And then Gwendolyn Kelly, who is our content manager, helped us sort of like with the marketing of it to help make that also elevate the story as well. And so it was kind of just all of the different pieces coming together to create this mood, this vibe, this sort of experience, really. And I'm very proud of like all of those like pieces coming together.
The only time I've ever played Bluebeard's Bride was with Jess Markram, who is Angry Nerd Girl, and is also a social worker, like in the meat space. And so I was like, I don't do horror normally. I didn't get into horror until I did this game and then played The Between. And I found when I'm in control of the narrative, I love horror. But so often people who look like me are the victims of horror. And so it's hard to be comfortable in those spaces. And so I can somewhat relate to the concept of wanting to have this very specific bubble of people to explore those spaces with.
Yeah, especially given that the sort of like main story or sort of problem horror that we were exploring in Guria was specifically like the intergenerational trauma of colonization and racialized misogyny. And we were very specifically exploring it from a Desi perspective, so from like a South Asian perspective, because all three of the cast members were South Asian, which was a complete accident. Like we didn't actually even intend to do that.
I love when that happens.
Yeah, it was like a complete accident. Joe and I were just thinking of like, okay, like who do we want to invite onto the game? And we picked people based off of we knew that we wanted them to be people of color, and then two, just people who we like thought would do well in horror, who like have done horror in the past, etc. And it just so happened completely by accident that we ended up casting like all Desi people, and we were like, and it was Joe actually who was like, hey, I just noticed the like racial makeup of our cast, like do we want to lean into that, like do we want to be more specific? And that was just like a nice like serendipitous thing that allowed us to tell a very specific story.
I love that.
Yeah. And talking about telling a specific story, the characters that you play and make are so dynamic and contain lots of depth. So I was just wondering, where do you start in that process of kind of embodying these characters?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I feel like my way of like creating characters is a little bit different from a lot of other people's ways of creating characters. I have a really, really hard time coming up with character backstories. I am notoriously bad at it. If anyone's ever GM'd me, you know this. You know that I come and I don't give you a whole lot in terms of that. I'm very much like a person who creates characters in the now. I think it was Quinn who said that my characters have very strong front story and like very little backstory. And that's kind of how I describe my character creation process, which is that I like to create characters who have a very clear like personality, very clear values, very clear beliefs, and they have. And this is kind of where I lean into for character creation. They have very, very strong and deep relationships with other characters, whether that's other PCs or other NPCs in the game. And that's kind of where I tend to focus when I create characters is like, how is this person related to the other characters that are in this narrative right now? What does their relationship look like? How do they feel about each other? Where do they want their relationship to go? And that's kind of where I like to play. I find it very difficult to then have an idea about like my character's past. And I tend to like play to find out for that stuff in particular. Like if my GM, asks questions or, makes it relevant at some point where something in my past has to come up, that's usually when I'm like making stuff up, like improving it during game. But otherwise, the way that I kind of inform like how my characters behave in different scenarios, etc., is really just based off of like what is their philosophical perspective? How are they feeling? How does this situation right now impact their relationships with other people? Those are kind of the main focuses that I have. And I'm trying to get better about like the backstory thing. I'm like trying to get better about being like, okay, like maybe I should think about like who was this person before, beyond like one or two sentences. And we'll talk about this later, but like or I'll talk about it later, but there is a new vampire game, Vampire the Masquerade game that I'm going to be in, where I actually, for some reason, had just like, I got possessed by something, and I actually created a very extensive backstory for this character that I don't normally do. So I'm trying to get better at that.
I'm fully in your boat with the chronically bad at backstory thing. I have repeatedly given two sentences. And I was like, I'll get you more later.
Right. It's like for Jiran for Transplaner, back when I created Jiran, I think my backstory for John was like Hunter in Moreau's Oka's ex. That's it. It was that was
That's
it. That
plenty
was two
complicated, honestly.
Right. Like that was it. That was all I had in terms of like a backstory.
See, I don't bother with long backstories because the majority of the games I'm in are only like 4 episodes. So I'm like, okay. But then I do some where it's just like so much, especially because I really like collaborative backstories. And so if somebody is playing a family member of mine or a spouse, then we have a full, like it's the entire, like when we were born to now, because I am extra like that.
Yeah, but I love doing that, right? Like that's where I focus on the like character relationships where like I love to like talk to people and be like, cool, so like this is how our characters know each other or like feel about each other. If they're friends, it'd be like, okay, cool, like what was it like? Like how did we become friends? Like, like stuff like that. I like doing that. But when it comes to just like the solo backstory of like what happened to your character before, I'm like, I don't know.
They were yesterday. They did this. Today they're here.
Yeah, right. It's like
I'm on a mission to make all of my friends play my sibling, and so far I've managed to do that with 3 friends. So I'm like either you're playing a sibling or like a cousin or a lover, like, and so I'm making my way through all of my friends to make them share backstories with me.
I love that. I love that so much.
Righty. we've covered your production, your playing. I want to talk more about the writing that you do in this space. So you writing for Emerald Templars. Can you tell us a little bit about all of that?
Yeah, I don't actually talk about. I always forget to say writer every time I'm like plugging myself for tabletop stuff because I don't actually talk about it very much. But yeah, I wrote. I was one of the I guess like narrative designers you can call it, or like world building writers for Emerald Templars, which is this dark fantasy tabletop game that D'Angelo is the head of the project for, and it's an all POC sort of team writing all of the different settings. And so I was brought on to write one of the nation states or the city states for Emerald Templars. And that was really, really fun actually, because we kind of just got free reign to like do whatever we wanted with that. And I I really wanted to create. You'll get a little sneak peek right now, I guess, because it's not out yet. But I really wanted to create a world that, or like a city state that has problems because it's a dark fantasy setting, but the problems are not based off of, um, like real world bigotries or any even fantasy bigotries, and they're not limited by what we consider to be like systems of oppression like in our real world. So to be more specific about that, because part of the process is we had to write about like what does the government look like, what does like all of this other stuff look like. And for my city state, I made a very very like explicit point to say there's no police and there's no military in this city state. They don't exist. And I like wrote out because part of the feedback process I was asked to clarify then like how does conflict resolution work, which I thought was a really really interesting like thought exercise to be like, okay, how does conflict resolution work in the city state, because conflict still exists, harm still exists. And so I got a chance to sort of like play in that space a little bit and to write out like just an idea of like what that might look like, what how would it look like for a city, for a nation to deal with harm within its borders, within its community, without turning to the violence of having a military, having a police force, etc. And even though this is a dark fantasy setting, I thought it was very important to like have that be very explicit. Because we can play in like apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic, dark, edgy worlds, but we don't need to play with these kinds of forces, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really fun because I am a big proponent of like the radical imagination, which is a concept that I got from Mariam Kaba, who's an abolitionist in the States. And it's basically this concept of like, in order to bring about a better world, we have to be able to imagine it first. And so for me, it was really important to sort of put this into my setting, because now every time people pick up this book and they play in my city state, they have to play in a world where the police and the military don't exist. And I think like forcing people to do that and to really engage with that and to think about it is kind of the first step, right? To making people think about like, okay, but do we need this in real life? Like maybe we don't. Like maybe there's another way to do stuff. And so it feels it maybe feels silly to say, but I do genuinely think that is important when we're like creating fantasy settings and stuff like that.
There's that, it's not like there's no reason people are trying to ban books. Like, that you're correct. Like, getting the ideas out there and showing people what the options are it's not silly. That's exactly why people are trying to get books banned. So.
I think of that line from Wreck-It Ralph that still ends up somehow being extremely powerful. We are bad guys, but we are not bad guys. Yes, like there are still like, there you can explore these concepts of like villainy or evil or darkness without crossing certain boundaries. Like, I mean, even some of the villains in Batman will not cross boundaries of like hurting children. Like that's like a hard boundary that pretty much all of them set. Like, so I agree is the long way of saying Wreck-It Ralph. Besides Emerald Templars, you're also writing for All the Witches RPG as well, and you're writing Region 4. Is there anything you can? I know the Kickstarter just finished recently. Is there any tidbits, anything you can tell us about Region 4 or things to think about as we're exploring the region?
Yeah.
Anything different?
First of all, I'm so excited to be on the team. Because I was added as sort of like a stretch goal thing, which is very exciting for me. So I didn't know I was going to be on the All the Witches team until relatively recently. And for that, we have only just sort of started the ideating process in terms of all of the new writers that got added, in terms of what we want to create. But so I can't really say a whole lot because we haven't sort of really delved into it very much. However, the one thing that I can say is I really want to play with the idea of like a city that is in the sky, but is not the traditional way that we think about like sky cities, you know, where it's like this floating rock and, you know, you've got like everything like that kind of thing. Um, I really want to play with this idea of like, what if there was a city in the equivalent of the Aurora Borealis, like it is a city made out of light that exists inside of these like light, natural light phenomena that exist in the world. And so that, and it's interesting to think about that idea as well, because functionally speaking, like depending on how you uh, look at it, like that city could disappear during the day and then like exist only at nighttime as well, or something like that as well. Which I just think that's a really
That's so cool.
just a very cool idea. So that's sort of where I'm
I
starting.
I'm like, yeah, ooh, how do I get in? Like, I want to play in there. Like, I used you'd have a very enlightened perspective if you lived in that city.
We only don't have a pun counter on this show to discourage that behavior.
It doesn't work.
Okay, hold on. Somebody grab a sticky note really quickly. We can make a manual pun counter.
What? Oh, you cannot read that.
I cannot see it. Yeah.
Good Sharpie.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, I'm excited. We haven't really gotten too much into it, so I don't have anything like super concrete, but that's kind of the ideas I've been noodling on for it.
Awesome. Well,
that whole project looks so freaking cute. I'm so excited.
Very excited to see you come out. The art is going to be fantastic because you know that she's going to get some good art on that.
Yes, it's going to be amazing. I cannot wait.
That
We've
team.
already... Yeah, and we've already been seeing bits of like the maps that are being created have been posted on Twitter, and y'all, they look so good.
Nice. Excited. What an amazing project coming down the pipeline. Like two amazing projects coming down the pipeline that we've just talked about here. Well, before I let you go and we bring on our next guest, do you have any plugs, anything you'd like to throw out in the world? I'm good with words.
So hello everybody. My name is Hamna. I use any and all pronouns, and I am a TTRPG performer, producer, and writer. I forget to say that part. You can find me on Twitter at Lilith TTRPG. Actually, my handle has changed. We're rebranding, folks. Yeah, in terms of what's coming up for me, like I mentioned earlier, on Friday, May 5th at I know times. Give me 1 second. I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern, but I'm going to double check real quick.
Oh, for the show,
it is.
The show we're doing? No, you're doing a different show first.
No, it's a different show. Yeah. On Friday, May 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern time, you can find me over on Demiplane RPG's channel, where we will be playing a Vampire the Masquerade and Hunter the Reckoning game at the same time. It is a 6-person table, 3 and 3. We've paired off. Each hunter is hunting one vampire. I will be playing a biblically accurate vampire, whatever that means to you. Is correct. You should come find out what that means. It's going to be super messy. It's going to be very queer. And I'm really excited for that project. And also, as we mentioned earlier, I am currently running a TTRPG mutual aid raffle over on Twitter. That ends in less than 7 hours. So get your stuff in. We're, I think, at like 52% of the goal or something like that. So let's just see how far we can get until it's over.
Awesome. All right, Darby, go ahead and bring on our next guest.
Alrighty, introducing Ave Calamity K, former theater kid, current TTRPG performer, writer, and producer, creates video games by day, TTRPG content by night, and has a really hard time sitting still because they want to try so many things. Welcome in, Calamity.
Hey, drum roll now.
Hello, thank you. Sorry, I was making sure I was unmuted everywhere. Hi.
Yeah, gotta make sure we get those captions in for sure.
Yes.
So as per usual, what's in your cup?
So I am drinking a Rubus Rose tea that I have Rubus that I have Rose and I put them together and I said, "Yep, that's my tea now." So that's what I'm having today. I wanted it to be a little experimental.
Amazing. Rubius twins today. Uh, so, my first question for you. You're currently working on a homebrew setting that you will be posting on socials this summer. What can you tell us about? Well, what can you tell us
So
about it?
it's going to be a few different things. It's mostly just me challenging myself to sort of dive into other systems and get really familiar with them. It's kind of like a writing practice while I work on slowly but surely creating my own. But yeah, I was thinking of starting with Visigoths versus Molgoths because it's such a cute and fun system. So I'm gonna make some like little homebrew stuff for that, and then just kind of go from there. I don't really have like a solid plan. It's just going to be really exploratory and yeah, just me getting like some more hands-on practice with like TTRPGs design specifically.
That's so cool. The creative process for that, you said that you want to play around in a couple of different systems. What does that creative process look like for you?
So for me, from kind of what because I haven't quite started it yet, but kind of what I have in mind is a bunch of tabletop games that I'm interested in, kind of exploring that have themes similar to ones that I want to create, and sort of what is it? There's like a term for it, but kind of like working backwards and kind of like taking apart the system and really getting to know like why it works so well. Just so I can kind of have a better sense of that. I got into tabletop maybe I think it's officially been 2 years now that I've actually been into tabletop. So I'm still a baby to it. I'm very new. So I think I kind of like dove in and got really involved in like performance more than anything else. So I think I'm ready to kind of like step back and get more into the design part of it. So yeah.
That's great. So as we've noticed, that the community that we hang out with is majority queer, and a lot of us are neurodivergent. And I was just wondering, as a fellow ADHDer, what is it that draws you to TTRPGs?
Definitely, it's kind of weird because masking is has like a really bad kind of connotation to it. Um, but I think that there's probably a whole therapy discussion there, but basically there was almost a fun sometimes to masking, and I think that's just a very similar to like becoming someone else, which is what you do in tabletop games. So sorry, I lost my words for a second. Basically, I think that I I don't know, I've just always liked performing and I've always liked just being like whoever I wanted and just like completely embodying a character. Like I used to do like Disney stories and I'd be like, okay, to my little sister, you're this person, I'm this person, and then I'd just like become them. And I was Belle a lot.
This is
Um
so relatable. That's why I'm like aggressively nodding because I've been there. I was that kid. And I agree with you. There's also a lot of catharsis in getting to embody someone else, especially people that are living in universes that are not marginalizing us in the same way that we experience as
mm,
we walk through life.
yeah.
And I think that that's the reason why, I mean, that's really the reason we started the channel in the first place, is to create a space that folks like us can hang out and not have to deal with real world issues of those sorts. And I agree with you. Like there's I think that I don't know if it's just personality type or the fact that it's ADHD and autism together or what, but I find the masking is like a game. In a way, like I've gamified it. Like
Mhm.
how quickly and easily can I fit into this situation that I am in?
Mm.
It made me a great bartender. It like got me through going to college in Idaho. Like,
Oh my
like
gosh.
you kind of have to. It got me through working in banking for so long,
Yeah.
and so it's just been. It is nice to be able to drop that mask when I'm at work now, because as a teacher, it's seen as a an asset. All the things that make me different than the general public, but
Hmm.
but sometimes wearing that mask is comforting. And I find that a lot of ADHDers are good actors.
Yeah, I have definitely found that, which I think is very interesting. Maybe it is that like kind of like gamification of it, because when you said that, I was like, ooh, yes, that resonates so hard. It kind of becomes a game after a while, because like masking isn't done for the best of reasons, but when you are a marginalized individual who is taught you have to be a certain way for certain situations, you just kind of learn to adapt to it. Why not make it fun?
Well, and I love, so I call TTRPGs like structured make believe. So it's like you gave me
Yes.
rules,
Hmm.
but it's still interesting to the ADHD brain, where it's like I need the rules for the autism side to like know what are my rules going in, so I can start scripting and figuring out what will work in this system. But then
Hmm.
it's still novel, like it's still
Yes.
interesting, and there's always the dice are going to mess with you in a way that changes what you thought was going to happen, which is also really cool. Because I don't know about you, but like if I watch a mystery show, I've solved the mystery like halfway through. Like
Oh
I've,
yeah,
and so not knowing what's
100%.
coming next in a comforting fashion, like I know the rules, so I'm not going to be surprised by the rules, but the dice are
Hmm.
going to fuck with me, and that
Yes.
creates novelty that we would not have otherwise. So anyway, this is like a topic I feel like I could talk about for like
No,
hours.
that's totally fine. Yeah, no, honestly, same, because it's just extremely relatable. Just yeah, so relatable, everything you're saying.
So we're totally switching gears, because I again we could talk about this one specific topic forever.
Of
I
course.
played so much Civilization, it's ridiculous. I'm not good at it, but I have put in the hours. I just wanted to know what and like Darby is the same, and so now we're talking about doing like the
A
like
Civ
bimbo
stream.
Civ stream, but it's like a couple of
Oh,
bimbos playing Civilization. Like just
yes.
I
Honestly, the best.
never read anything. I've played 244 hours of Civ 6. Are you kidding?
like let's
Oh
just
my
put
god.
we're going by vibes
Yeah.
only, like
I've sniped out three great, like, what are those, the big buildings called, the like special, like the
The
pyramids that you,
the
Wonders.
yeah,
wonders,
the wonders.
yeah.
I've sniped three out from my partner when we were playing, and he's just like, "Why did you do that? Like, you didn't even need those." I'm like, "It just told me to do it. The little bing bong thing said I should build it, so I built it." Like, I don't know what you're mad about. And he's like, "What? Why are these buildings next to each other?" I'm like, "I don't know. Why? It just seemed better to keep them closer together." And he's like,
I don't play
"I
this
hate."
game with smart people for a
I'm
reason. I'm a
Mm-mm.
high whiz like mid int person, so like I just no thoughts, head empty.
always go
Yes.
religion. I'm like a religion route person. I hate combat. I spread the word of fishism. Every game
Oh
is always
yeah.
fishism. Like, it's time to worship the fish. Like, I am. It's like fish and money. That's like
Beautiful.
my whole shtick is
I
just getting as
mean,
much money as possible. Like,
worshiping money isn't that far off from what a lot of the world does.
Honestly, yeah.
Anyway, so what, at Fraxis Games, what is your focus?
So currently I'm a producer, is what I kind of got brought in for. And I've been working with the Marvel Midnight Suns DLC, which has been super fun. Um, that's just been a total joy. But yeah, I was actually really shocked that my only strategy experience, like personally, beforehand was Fire Emblem, and that was an acceptable answer. It's like y'all make some of the greatest like strategy games on the planet. But okay, cool. I'm glad that you could accept me. Like I had never played Civilization. I had never played XCOM. I'd never played any of the games. Um, but I have dabbled in them now. I have a Civilization problem. I have to cap myself at a certain time because I will play until 6 a.m.
yep.
Easy, no No,
You just,
I
like,
didn't
next
do that
turn.
last
One
night.
more
or
turn.
anything.
One more turn. One more turn.
Yes.
Like, it's a hyper-focused time suck for sure. Yeah.
Yes, it really is. But it's a good time. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I am going to move to a different project here soon, but that is NDA.
It's a hush hush secret.
Good
Yeah.
old NDA.
Mhm.
So back to TTRPGs. This is a very, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm very ADHD today. So you're currently playing in a quest game on Bad House TTRPG. What can you tell us about your character and the game?
Yay, so my character, yay because the game is just so much fun. We had our first episode last Friday, 2 days ago. Yeah, on Friday. It was such a fun time. Chris Conlon is the GM of that, and they are great. And my character, so I kind of to give a brief of what it's about. So it's kind of like a Ghibli-esque sort of inspired game using quests, so it has the cute little lovely moments that make your heart all warm and the devastating moments that make you want to cry. It's great. And even in the very first episode it just had literally all of that. It's been beautiful. Anyway, shout out to that entire team. They're great. But I play Lawrence, who is a little shit. I'm trying to think of a better term.
We love
a
little shits in this
troublemaker.
house.
We love just a little troublemaker.
Well, he's a little troublemaker, he's just like run around town, just like I'm an
Well, Dennis the
orphan.
Menace. We love that.
Basically,
Like
and
Markle,
just
but like with
causing
less
trouble.
less impulse control.
Yeah, yeah, basically. He does like helping people a lot. So
Mhm.
that's good.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was really fun to explore that first episode with him because I didn't expect to have to get into the different dynamics of his personality so fast, but because of what Chris did, it was like, wow. Yeah, I had to dig deep very suddenly. It was really cool.
Keep you on your toes.
Mm-hmm.
So like Hamna, you've worked on Emerald Templars. Could you tell us anything about your writing on that project?
Sure, yeah. I helped out with one of the city states. Um, the one I wrote is called Akuji, and I I'm trying to remember how I pulled it together. I was debating for a really long time what exactly I wanted to do with it, and I just sort of came up with this very like kind of like closed off society that like if we're in it, it looks great because everyone gets along, everyone knows each other, but outside of the society, like they don't really interact with other people, and just kind of showing the pros and cons. Like it was really cool to kind of make something that was sort of a I really like contrast. I don't know. I really like contrast and exploring contrast. So that was kind of how I dove into that is how is this like a really amazing thing, but also like a really bad thing. So that's kind of like a very like overall brief. I'd have to go back and read it. It's been a hot second. But an overall brief of everything that of kind of the inspiration behind it and creating that world. And it was really cool to it's near water, so I had to like look at a lot of architecture that, dealt with like living like by like large bodies of water and living in just like because the weather changes really quick there. So weather conditions. And then I also got to add in a lot of really cool like accessibility things because they're very big on everyone in their community being able to contribute however they can, whatever that is.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's like a very scattered brief of what I'm writing or what I
I
wrote.
love that you included information like focus on accessibility because I think that's something that like when you people go, oh hey, did you think about doing this? You're like, oh yeah, I totally would have done that. I would have added that if I had thought of it. And so it's something that people forget about even when they totally would want to include accessibility into their games or into their settings and things like that. So yeah, that's really I love that. So this is going to make me sound so old, but I don't know what being a VTuber means. Can you educate this nearly 40-year-old woman on what the hell that is? Because
So VTuber, virtual, sorry, that image exactly. It's that little like backpack kid. That's Lawrence 100%. Yeah, that's him. But VTuber. So basically virtual content creator is kind of how I explain VTuber, because there's streamers, there's YouTubers, there's all kinds of VTubing is becoming very, very big. People doing like concerts and stuff. But basically, it is an avatar that you create and sort of represents you if you want it to. It can be, there's people who do VTubers that are just them, like, but digital. There's others that kind of do like a combination of like an OC and them. There's others that just do like pure OC and just go completely opposite of their personality. So there's a lot of kind of different things you can do with it, but kind of overall, it is a virtual content creator that can interact with people, and typically depending on the level, kind of has different like reactions that can happen, so that there is that kind of interaction ability. That's not a word that happens when you like do watch a face-to-face content creator.
Yeah.
Interaction ability.
Interaction ability. Interactive ability. Oh, gosh, what is the word for that?
Yeah, it's not.
There has to be a word.
Interactive
ability. I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to like search. I'm gonna have to know.
Yeah.
I have words, people. I message. I'm like, hey, I need words. Because
so
sometimes I'm like, I need a word to. I need something to name this, or I sometimes will have anomicaphasia, so I'll know the definition of a word, but I can't think of what the word is. And that's
what is that called?
Anomicaphasia.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, so
I have that.
Yeah. And so my bachelor's degree is in psychology, and I studied stroke, and that is a common aphasia is a common symptom of stroke, and so I know all the types of aphasia there can be. But anyway, so the good news is I usually have at least one student in my class that reads at like a high school reading level, and I teach fifth graders, so they're 10 and 11. And so when I get like that in the classroom, I'm like, hey, I'm trying to think of a word that means this. It's the same as this but deeper, or the same as this but madder, or whatever. And I always have at least one kid that can tell me what word I'm looking for. It's like having a live thesaurus in my classroom.
I love that.
And they feel cool too, because it's like a little vocabulary quiz, and they knew the answer. And kids love being right.
Oh yeah, kids
but anyway,
love being
so I'm gonna totally I'm gonna go back to on Monday, tomorrow. I'm gonna like write it on the board. Here's your question of the day. Like, what's a word that means like interactive ability?
Please tell me what you came up with, because I need to know.
I will totally tell you. I'll probably even post it on Twitter, because sometimes the stories about my students are make people happy, because Gen Alpha is really cool, actually. Like, they're a really cool group of kids. Anyway, so that was my last like formal question for you. So do you have things you would like to plug before we wrap up with just me and Darby on screen?
Yeah, so I am Calamity. You can find me as Hey Calamity on all the things. I am like I had said before, like narrative designer, writer. I do all kinds of tabletop stuff, and other things depending on whatever my special interest for the day is. But I will be writing a bunch of homebrew this summer, so you can kind of see on Twitter, as long as that is a thing, what I'm doing there. I also have an itch.io under Hey Calamity 3 Ys as well. And Symphony of Silos is every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a Studio Ghibli-esque quest game that I am involved in. The cast is absolutely incredible. The characters are precious. You just want to hold them in your hands. The story is beautiful and dark and just full of so much lore. I absolutely adore anything that has lore in it. So I'm just really excited to continue to explore that world. But also, I am getting back into sort of freelance writing. So just to like throw that out there. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna just bring Darby and I back. All right, Darby, do your plugs again. Did you get rid of your sticky note?
Every other Wednesday, you can find me on Neon Lights Roleplay playing in Stardust Ghost. My character is Roxanne. She is super cool, very chilled. Uh, definitely not a murderer. All cool, very nice. You can find me at MagicCon this weekend, maybe, or outside of MagicCon, more accurately, most certainly. And I guess I did publish a role playing game recently. It's about farting. It's called Gas Leak. It's it's something. So you can look at that. It's free. It's pay what you want. You don't have to pay me money for a game about farting. It's literally 1 page long. If you want, I'll send it to you. But like, I made that. It's on itch. You can find the itch link on my Twitter, Linktree, what have you. So yeah, that's my last plug.
Okay. So on the channel itself, Tuesday we have our second episode of A Fistful of Value, which is Miguel's root game. Next Sunday, join us for Alyssa's Apocalypse Keys game, Romulos. That looks like it's going to be spooky and fun, and the cast is so good, like all of our casts are. And starting May 5th is our session 0, so the weekend, that week, Friday after, we have an amazing, super gay, super dramatic, super sad game of D&D that I will be in with Sailor Scout Austin. The GM is Scholastic Dragon. C is going to be on that as well, and I know C rebranded. So, see if you're still in chat. You can remind me what your name is on Twitter now. And then our other player is a Scary Dog Friend. And when June rolls around, Hamna will also be joining that cast. So that's going to be really great. I'm so excited. C Plays RPG is our other player. That's what it was. Thank you. I was like, I know it's not Pie Sharp Art anymore. So tune in for that. I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. And we will see you on the internet.